Namaste to everyone. I'm Kiran Babu Vatrai from Birtamor Zapa. So I'm going to give a presentation on the topic literature review and research gap. This is submitted to Mr. Sandeep Dungana, who is the course facilitator at Kathmandu University, and this presentation is done for the partial fulfillment of MEd in mathematics from Kathmandu University. So the topics that we're going to discuss today are introduction to literature review, importance of literature review, types of literature review, understanding research gaps, types of research gaps, and steps in literature review. So now to talk about what literature review is. So literature review is a critical, it is systematic, and it is a comprehensive analysis of existing research on a specific topic or subject area. So this involves evaluating, summarizing, and synthesizing scholarly works. It includes books, journal articles, conference papers, theses, and other relevant resources. The primary purpose of literature review is to provide a clear understanding of the current state of knowledge in the field, highlighting the key findings, trends, and debates and gaps in the existing research. So by doing so, it serves as a foundation for the new research by offering context, identifying areas that require further exploration, and guiding the formulations of research questions or hypotheses. So that was what a literature review is. So now uh, we'll be talking about the importance of literature review. So the importance are it identifies unexplored area. Means a literature review helps researchers identify gaps in existing knowledge where further investigation is needed. So these gaps could relate to unanswered questions, under researched topics, or emerging issues. For example, if most studies on climate change focus on urban areas, a literature review might reveal a lack of research on rural communities. So it identifies unexplored area, and it avoids redundancy. Means conducting a thorough literature review ensures that researchers do not duplicate efforts already taken by others. So this saves time, resources, and energy as well. So for example, if a study has already been proven that effectiveness of teaching method, then the researcher can avoid retesting the same hypothesis because it has already been done, the conclusion has been already been extracted, so it is not necessary to do that again. So doing the literature review avoids redundancy, so it drives innovations. By analyzing past research, researchers can identify opportunities for innovations, so they can build upon existing theories or methodologies, or findings to develop novel approaches or solutions. So for example, like a review of renewable energy technologies might inspire the creation of hybrid system that combines solar and wind power. And furthermore, it clarifies research purpose. Means a literature review helps researchers refine their research objectives by situating their works within the broader economic discourse. So it allows them to articulate why the study is necessary and how it contributes to the field. So for example, if a researcher is studying workplace diversity, they might use a literature review to justify focusing on inclusive hiring practice rather than general diversity policies. So this literature review also guides research design. So understanding the strengths and weakness of previous studies, this enables researchers to design better methodologies, so they can adapt effective strategies while avoiding pitfalls identified in the earlier research. So if the prior research, like for example, if prior studies on mental health intervention relied heavily on self-reported data, then the researcher might choose to incorporate observational methods, a different method, or a different approach for greater accuracy. So it guides research design, so it strengthens the academic contribution as well. So a well conducted literature review that demonstrates the researcher's familiarity with the field, so it showcases that the ability of the researcher is critical to engage within the existing scholarship. So this enhances the credibility and impact of their work. So that is why literature review is important. So now we'll talk about some types of literature review. There are several types of literature review. Then each solve different purposes depending upon the nature of the research. So let's see some different types of literature review. The first one is thematic review. So thematic review, it focuses on organizing and discussing literature based on recurring themes or topics across multiple studies. So for example, a thematic review on education might group studies into categories such as student motivation, teacher training, or curriculum development. So thematic review, it focuses on organizing and discussing literature based on recurring themes of some topics across multiple studies. So multiple studies are studied, and the one that recurs time and again are taken into consideration. The second one is theoretical review. So this examines various theories related to research topic, comparing and contrasting the assumption and the applications and the implementation implications. So theoretical review on leadership style, like for example, this might compare transformational, transactional, and servant leadership models. So a theoretical review, this examines existing theory to the specific topic, and this will be able to assess the relevancy and applicability of this of the theories. So the next one is policy review. Policy review, it analyzes policy, regulations, or guidelines that are relevant to research topic. It often assesses the impact, effectiveness, or impact. So for example, a policy review on public health might evaluate government initiative aimed at reducing smoking rates. So policy review talks about what is the current policy and what are the different rules made by different organizations or by the government, and this is helpful for the stakeholders or the policy makers in future. So empirical review, this empirical review, it is concentrated on empirical evidence derived from the primary research. It summarizes the finding from the experiments, surveys, and case studies. So this is empirical review. Now understanding what research gaps is. So research gap is composed of two words, research and gap. So this is clear enough to tell. So a research gap referred to an unaddressed or insufficiently explored areas within a field of study. It identifies these gaps is crucial because identifying the research gap is very important because they represent opportunities for meaningful contribution to knowledge. For instance, if no one has studied the effects of remote learning on students' social skills during the pandemic, then this constitutes a research gap, because research gap makes identifies the deviation because of what has already been done and what is about to be done. So what has been done and what is about to be done, there is a gap between them. So research gap identifies those kind of space between the work about to be done and the work that has already been done. So uh, that is the definition of research gap. So now let's talk about some types of research gaps. So the research gap can take various forms depending on what aspect of the research landscape is lacking. So the main types of are seen in the screen. Methodological gap. So this occurs when there is a need for improved or alternative research method to address limitations in existing studies. So for example, most studies on employee satisfaction use quantitative survey. A qualitative approach using interviews could fill this gap. So the next one is population gap. So population gap arises when certain groups or demographics have been overlooked in previous research. So like for example, studies on diabetes management may predominantly focus on adults, leaving children and adolescents understudied. So that is what we call population gap is. So practical gap is, it refers to the lack of actionable insights or real world application despite extensive theoretical exploration. For example, while many people discuss sustainable farming techniques, fewer focus on implementing these methods in developing countries. So that is what you call practical gap. So this exists when researchers identify the real world problem that has not been addressed by any existing studies. So temporal gap, it exists when outdated information fails to reflect current realities or advancements. For example, research on artificial intelligence ethics conducted like 10 years ago may not account for the recent breakthrough in machine learning. So that is what we call is temporal gap. So the next one is geographic gap, that is not shown here, but it is, the gap is there. So it highlights the regions or locations that have received little attention in literature. For example, environmental conservation studies may concentrate on Europe and North America, but they might neglect Africa or South Asia. So that is geographic gap. So now let's talk about steps in literature review process. So conducting a high quality literature review requires careful planning and execution. So let's see some steps. So the first one is identifying relevant sources. So begin by defining your research topics and keywords. Like use database like Google Scholars or PubMed, or there are some others sources where you can find the relevant sources. So consider both seminal works, the classical studies, and recent publication to ensure a balance like perspective. The next one is obtaining the literature. So assess full text of selected sources through university libraries or online or interlibrary loans. So ensure that all materials are credible and authoritative. So the next one is reading the literature. So skim abstracts and introduction to determine relevance, then read thoroughly, taking notes on key arguments, methodologies, findings and conclusions. So you need to organize your notes systematically, perhaps categorizing them by theme, methodologies, or chronologically will help you. So next one is extracting relevant information. So identify patterns, contradictions, and trends in the literature. Highlight significant contributions and unresolved debates. Create tables or mind map to visualize relation between different studies. So the step five, you need to evaluate the contents. So you need to critically assess the quality of each source. Consider factors of such as sample size, validity of method, clarity of presentation, and alignment with your research goals. So be mindful of biasness, omissions, and overly speculative claims. So last one, writing of literature. So structure your review logically. Common formats include like chronological by publication date, thematic by topic, or methodological by type of research. So start with introduction, outlining the scope and objectives of the review. Follow with the body paragraphs, so summarize and critiques the literature. Conclude by emphasizing key insights, gaps, and implement for future research. So you need to do the documentation at the end, and you have to show where your documentations are from. That is, you need to cite the research. So that is all for you. So finally, what I want to say is that when you are doing the literature, you need to stay organized, you need to be critical, you need to cite appropriately, and you need to update regularly. So by following these, maybe one can produce a robust and insightful literature review that is required for the solid foundation of the research project. So thank you so much for listening me, and I hope that I'm clear enough to explain you the things. And thank you to my course facilitator as well.